Hey everybody, I'm Corbin Hostler. This is Mining Modern, and this is Warp World Elves. We're gonna have some fun this week. So, um, here's the deck. We've had a lot of fun on this. Sometimes I play, fringe decks that are competitive, some that are less so, but trying something out. And occasionally I just play decks that are all the fun. And I'm pretty sure this qualifies as that. So, I'll just go ahead and read you the card that the entire deck is. Each player shuffles all permanents he or she owns into his or her library, then reveals that many cards from top. Each player puts all artifacts, creatures, and lands revealed this way onto the battlefield, then does the same for enchantments, then puts all cards revealed this way that weren't onto the battlefield on the bottom of their library. So that is the deck. This is Warp World. It's floated in and out of Fringe competitive ever since it was printed. And so the idea is you build your deck with a whole bunch of permanents, and then you cast Warp World. And the idea is if your opponent has any blanks, it's going to get them worse than it gets you. So what's the best way to power that out of Modern? How about Elves? They make all the mana. So Elvish Mystic, Heritage Druid, Land of War Elves. You know what these do. We ramp. It's what we do. Elvish Archdruid taps for a lot of mana. Wood Elves. It's actually surprising this card's even in Modern, but it is. It's time shifted, I guess. So when it enters play, you can search for a forest and put it in play. Another ramp elf here. Now, Dryden's Elite, of course, another elf staple. Now we figure out how we're going to make the Warp World good. So Shaman of the Pack, this is a great win condition. Comes into play, it'll see all the other elves you're putting into play with it and deal them damage. Perforos, God of the Forge, this is also going to deal them all the damage as it comes into play because it's going to see all the other creatures come into play and they're going to take 2 from each of those. Regal Force, get to it. We can draw a bunch of cards with all the green creatures we have in play to draw our Warp Worlds. And Dragon Lord of Tarka, another nice ramp target. You can clear the board. Obviously, another very good one off of Warp World. And one Xenagos to make some mana. And, I guess make satyrs as well. That can be relevant. That's the deck. It's simple, but it's awesome. You cast Warp World and your opponents die, at least in theory. So, but you also have this backup elf plan, which, while this is not, as good as other elves lists necessarily are, obviously we don't have Payoff, Collected Company, Chords, Azuri. We're much worse on sort of the elf beatdown plan. We want to play Warp World. That's the deck. But the backup plan is at least an acceptable thing. Moving on to the sideboard, we have Heroic Interventions to protect our guys from board wipes. Hexproof and Indestructible. Hornet Nests in the aggro matchups. How does a Tarmogoyf beat through a Hornet Nest? Not very well. That's the answer. Hornet Nest pretty good against Lightning Bolt. Doesn't get Fatal Push unless they have Revolt as well. So Hornet Nest actually kind of a sweet modern sideboard card. It's been popping up a little more. Thragtusk when you need to gain life. Bonfire of the Damned against other small creature decks. We want to wrath them when we can. That's something we can do with a bunch of mana and red spells. And Fracturing Gust to kind of clean up Affinity, Boggles, any of that sort of stuff you may run into. Lantern. That's the deck. It's a lot of fun. Now the one thing I think we might need. Now we have 4 Caverns. Which fix for the black mana as well as make our guys uncounterable. And Copperline Gorges, Firelit Thickets, Stomping Grounds to make the red mana for the spells we need to resolve. And then Nykthos, again, bunch of green mana there. Although, when you can't cord and stuff like that, and you don't have Azuri, it's definitely worse. But, that is what it is. Twilight Mire, I put this in here so we could do have another piece of fixing for this. Because this is not easy to cast. Obviously, you want to get into it off of Warp World, but I think being able to cast it is pretty important as well. Now, I have not played a ton with this deck. I've played a little, but I think the mana base could probably be tweaked a little to make it a little easier to actually cast all these spells. And one card I think we need, and I'm actually going to go ahead and make this change right now, is to cut a Hornet Nest and get a Boseiju in here. Because this seems pretty important. We sideboarded in against control. Pretty important, I think, to make the Warp World uncounterable in certain times. And the Hornet Nests are great, but we're probably already good against those decks. We're probably already boarding in Bonfire against those decks, and we're probably naturally pretty decent against those. So this is the deck. It's going to be a lot of fun, win or lose. I know that. So let's get some matches in with it.